I want you to think back about a time where you declared something. As a kid, you probably declared your place in the car. Shotgun. Your grumbling stomach declared that you're hungry. If you're anything like me, you have been spending the last couple weeks watching the Olympics, where the whole goal is to declare who the best of the best athletes are. To declare something is to stake our claim of what we think is ours, or what we want to be ours. But we make a very critical mistake, thinking that the world is ours to claim. Ever since the fall of man, there's been a power struggle on who rules the earth. And ever since that time, man and Satan himself have been trying to rip that control out of God's hands. But God, being all-loving, all-powerful, set his plan in place, sending his son to earth to stake his claim, to declare what is rightfully his. And many of us miss how intentional Jesus was about claiming his territory. He wasn't subtle about this. His actions were deliberate, were purposeful. Towards the beginning of his ministry, Jesus walked into the temple of his hometown ready to declare what was his. Luke chapter 4, verses 16 through 21. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as was his custom, he entered the synagogue on the Sabbath. And he stood up to read. And the book of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. And he opened up the book and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives, and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free those who are oppressed, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord." And he closed the book, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. And the eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him. And he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." And if Jesus would have been using modern technology, this would have been his mic drop moment. But what he said could get lost on you and I, but it wasn't lost on his audience. Because that prophecy in Isaiah was about the Messiah, and nobody else would have ever read it as though it was in first person. On that day, in his hometown, in that synagogue, Jesus was declaring to be the Messiah, the one that God promised, the one that would save the world. Jesus knew his role. He knew his purpose. He knew that he would first have to come back as a suffering servant before he could return as the rightful king. Something that even though God told them, the Jews didn't want to hear. They wanted to skip ahead and just have a Messiah that would keep them out of Roman oppression. But God's plan wasn't merely to save some from political oppression. His plan was to save all from sin and to declare the world as his, the way it was originally designed. I want to thank KIKO Radio for airing this Word of Hope by Central Heights Baptist Church, where we strive to honor Jesus and to be like your grandma's traditional church.